Alright, guys, just bear with me while I pull up our slides for the day. Alrighty, so we're talking about Congressional Reconstruction today. Congressional Reconstruction, like as you guys know, we already covered Presidential Reconstruction in our last live class. And today we need to talk about Congressional and how Congress differed from Presidential Reconstruction and how they sought to undermine Abraham Lincoln's original idea and plan for reintegrating the South into the Union. All right, here's our Hawk focus for the day. Don't worry, I will create this as an assignment, make a Google Doc for you with the questions already on it. And as you can see, pages 200 through 201, they will be available to you electronically. If you go into the Google Classroom course stream, you can see the electronic copy of the textbook there for you with a username and password. So you are there. You're ready to do this. You can do it. I believe in you. All right, here we go. Congressional Reconstruction it is. We're still on Standard 8.5, Indicator 1. I'll read this to you. It's analyze the development of Reconstruction policy and its impact in South Carolina, including the presidential and the Congressional Reconstruction plans, the role of black codes, and the Freedmen's Bureau. So we've got a lot on the plate today, and we're going to talk about these things at length. I'm going to try to keep it at 10 minutes the best I can. So, radical Republicans, exactly what it sounds like, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about Republicans that are much more adamant about the way that things are going to go from now on in the South. They're not just trying to let the South come in and be reintegrated into the Union like Abraham Lincoln wanted to. They see it as more of the South needs to pay for their way of life, for their crimes. You know, the way that they've behaved in the past. They want to see them answer for that. And so they wanted to take control of Reconstruction and create a new society that presents itself as equality with equal representation and equal opportunities for all people in the South. So, I mean, that's a good idea, but at the same time, it kind of is poor in execution. So we'll see why it was poor in execution. All right, Wade Davis bill. Right here, you've already got straight off the top, Abraham Lincoln only desired 10% of a state's population to take an oath of loyalty. The congressional powers that be wanted it to be 50%. So we're talking about half of a state's population swearing an official oath of allegiance back to the United States of America versus 10% under Lincoln's plan. And only those that were loyal would be allowed to even vote at all, much less hold office. So, I mean, we're talking even just to participate as a voting citizen, you had to re-swear that oath of allegiance. And President Lincoln vetoed this bill. He was like, whoa, we're making this way too hard. We're going to cause more trouble for ourselves down the long run than we are we're going to do good. So it was a massive issue for those people there. So Lincoln vetoed that bill. Congressional Reconstruction continued. Congress would not allow newly elected members from the South to come in. So right there initially, you've got a lot of like Confederate generals and people like that are being elected to these high offices. And they're like, whoa, no, pump the brakes. We're not doing that. We're not playing that game. And so ultimately, Thaddeus Stevens, a radical Republican, called for Congress to draw up a new plan for Reconstruction that would supersede and overturn presidential Reconstruction from Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson. And so they're just saying, hey, we're not letting them get away with this. And so putting that pressure on the South actually caused some problems. Lincoln wasn't dumb here. He knew that we just needed to kind of smoothly reintegrate things, but certain people wanted to make sure that their agenda was carried out within the radical Republicans, and it put a lot of pressure on the South. And so let's talk about that here in just a moment. But first, the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau was a bureau of refugees, freedmen, and abandoned lands, and it was set up during the Civil War to help those affected by the war, providing things like clothing, medical care, food, education, and some protection. So let's talk about those things really fast. Freedmen's Bureau is exactly what it sounds like. Those that were once slaves and now are not need representation. So, boom, we're a bureau to represent them. They provided things like clothing, because guess what? You used to be a slave. Things were provided to you because your master owned you and wanted you to live and work and be successful. Medical care, your master did not want you to die because he spent a lot of money. Food, your master did not want you to starve because he'd spent a lot of money. Okay, education, though, is a little bit different. So education, when we see that, that's one of the big standouts for it, because most plantation owners and slaveholders did not really want overly educated slaves, because that allows them to rebel. But really and truly, because they're no longer working on a plantation, and there's very few jobs for freed slaves to have. Well, how are they getting clothing? How are they getting medical care? And how are they getting food, much less education? So the education solved some of those problems, because education allowed them to get some jobs. And then that protection part at the end there, it's less complicated than you might think. Hate groups began to kind of rise up, like things like the KKK and other sorts of vigilante justice groups and things like that were mistreating former slaves and African Americans. They needed protection from that, because they were being abused. So Freedmen's Bureau continued. The Bureau helped them find jobs, and then this is that big part of education. Established over 1,000 schools in the South to be able to place them in jobs that were productive. Okay, so really just trying to help them any way they can. But as you guys know, government entities are not the most efficient. Just think of public school, literally, as an example. Even though it works okay, it's still not the most efficient way of doing things. And unfortunately, here we are. These once former slaves, now free, are at the mercy of basically the benevolency of the government, meaning how willing are they to help them. And some good work was done, but it definitely was not enough. So, 14th Amendment. Let's kill this thing here. We've already discussed the 13th Amendment in our very last live class that we had together. And now we've moved on to the 14th. There are 3 Reconstruction Amendments in particular, 13, 14, and 15. All right, now we're on 14, and it guaranteed equal rights as citizens to former slaves, guys. Remember, the 13th Amendment set them free. Well, whoopity-doo-dah, you're now set free. But if you're still not allowed to participate in most things that society participates in and has available, then what good is your freedom? So the 14th Amendment does something about that, because if you remember the Dred Scott case that took place before the Civil War, we learned about it in the unit prior to the Civil War during the antebellum period. You'll recall that Roger Taney, who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, said, hey, slaves do not have a right to seek justice in a court of civil or criminal law. Hey, slaves do not have a right to sue. Slaves do not have a right. And so, in other words, they weren't citizens. So even if you were set free, you weren't a citizen. So you couldn't really participate. All right, well, the 14th Amendment, boom, overturns that. It says, no, we're changing the Constitution. If you fit the bill of a naturalized citizen, the definition of slavery is no longer a thing, period, right? Slavery is no longer a thing. So problem solved. You've been here, you've been born here, once a slave. Now you're not only free, but you're a citizen. That's what the 14th Amendment does. And we'll cover the 15th later. Reconstruction Acts. With the congressional elections of 1866, so remember, Lincoln was killed there in 65 in April. But the radicals gained power. So we're into Andrew Johnson's presidency a little ways, and radicals gained power in Congress. And they come up with these new Reconstruction Acts. They wiped out state governments and basically said, no, these southern governments are not going to, tell people how to live within their states and try to go back to this old aristocratic style and, southern wealthy elites. We're not doing that. So they set up these military districts. And they have District 1 in Virginia, District 2 covering North and South Carolina, and District 3 covering Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, District 4 covering Arkansas, Mississippi, and District 5, Louisiana, and Texas. And when you see them, they've divided them into those 5 districts, and you literally had military officers that were serving not only as the police, but quasi-political, authorities at this time, and that rubbed many Southerners the wrong way. And unfortunately, because of this kind of iron-fisted rule that the Union was exercising over the South, what do you think? Did that make the Southerners happy? Probably not. So did that make them treat the freed slaves better or worse? definitely worse, because who are they blaming for this, right? So they're blaming all this punishment on the slaves. And so it makes things pretty bad, and that's why you see things rise up like the KKK and other types of vigilante groups and things like that. But that's the radical Republicans. They're trying to force their way onto the South, and it's actually making the Southerners pay. And then by default, because you're making the Southerners pay, you're now making the former slaves pay too. So it's kind of like a double whammy. But anyway, so that covers all of our materials for today. I believe that's our last slide. Let me verify that for you. But yes, needless to say, what I would like you to do at this time is make sure you taken a moment and you have read through this slide that'll be available to you as a lesson, watched this video, make sure you do your warm-up, and I'll also post some other sort of an assignment. I'll try to keep things down to right at about 45 minutes worth of your time a day, up to an hour. I don't want to be too crazy, but I'll be posting something for both A and B day every single day, because that's what we're expected to do for core classes. So if you have any questions, please email me. If you have any concerns, I'll be available from like the hours of 8 to 3 p.m., 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Take this time to enjoy spending quality time with your families and continue doing a good job in school. Also, attendance. Let me go ahead and show you this while I got you here. Attendance will be recorded. I created 3 tabs basically, so I'll show you 1A just for giggles here, and you'll, well, if I can get it to work. I'll show you what it looks like for 1A, but all classes are designated the exact same way. If it will pull up, yay. So here we go. What you'll see is underneath the classwork tab, I've created COVID-19 attendance. So every day you'll go there and you'll fill out a Google form to prove that you came and checked and did the work, and we take attendance. Then you'll see the lesson. The lesson's where you'll get my video and my presentation and the PowerPoints. And then in COVID-19 assignments is where you'll do the work for each day, and they'll have a due date and a due time posted on there. All right, guys, so stay engaged, stay with me, and keep in contact with me via email if you got anything. Like I said, once again, take this time, enjoy your families, enjoy some liberty and freedom, but also exercise responsibility and do a good job. All right, guys, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.